My name is Eleanor Hayes. I am 74 years old, and I live in a quiet little house at the far end of Maple Street. The house was built by my late husband, Thomas, back when we were young and full of plans. He laid every brick with his own hands. In the front yard, he planted white lilies instead of roses. Each spring they bloom softly, and whenever I see them, I remember the bouquets he used to bring me when we were just two shy people falling in love. For many years, Thomas and I hoped for a child. It never happened the way we expected. Then, when I was 39, life surprised us. We adopted a baby boy and named him Michael. From the moment I first held him, he became the center of our world. We never felt he was anything less than our own flesh and blood. He grew up surrounded by love, laughter, and bedtime stories. Now he is 37 years old. Sometimes I think that fate simply chose a different path to make us a family. A few years ago, Michael moved to Brookfield for a better job opportunity. Before he left, he handed me a tiny box wrapped in blue paper. Inside was a simple mobile phone, large buttons, a small screen, and just enough features for someone like me. He pointed to the bright green button and said, "Just press this, Mom. I'll answer. Anytime." I held the phone carefully, almost like it was made of glass. I had never owned one before. It felt like holding a fragile thread that connected us across distance. "Promise me you'll call every day," I said, trying to sound calm. He smiled, the same smile he had as a boy. "I promise. You'll hear my voice every single day." And for a while, I did. The first week after he moved was beautiful. Every morning, just as the sunlight reached my kitchen table, the phone would ring with its cheerful little melody. I would already be sitting by the window with my tea, waiting. He told me about his small apartment on the 3rd floor, about the noise of buses and traffic, about his new colleagues. He laughed often. When he laughed, I heard echoes of Thomas. Sometimes I cooked his favorite dinner, roast chicken with potatoes, even though I sat alone at the table. I would imagine him across from me, describing his busy day. At night, I wrote in my journal, "My son's voice fills these rooms again." This little phone is like a candle in the darkness. But slowly, things shifted. One morning, the call didn't come. I told myself he must be busy. By evening, there was still silence. The next day he apologized quickly. "Work was crazy, Mom." I forgave him. Of course I did. Then the calls became less frequent. Not every day. Sometimes every few days. Then once a week. When he did call, his voice sounded distant, distracted. I could hear music or laughter in the background. "Who's there?" I asked once. "Just friends, Mom." "Don't worry." I said I wasn't worried, but my heart didn't listen. Weeks passed. Then months. I still cooked as if someone else would join me. Old habits cling tightly, especially when they are tied to love. The phone stayed near me at all times. On the armchair when I cleaned. In my pocket when I watered the garden. Beneath my pillow at night. Sometimes it buzzed, and my heart leapt, but it was never him. A service message. A wrong number. An advertisement. Once, I even answered a stranger's call and spoke longer than necessary, just to hear another human voice say, "Hello." In my journal, I began writing letters to him. "Dear Michael, I baked your favorite pie today. It tasted the same, but it felt different without you. Dear Michael, I saw a young man riding a bicycle like you used to. For a moment, I thought it was you." Neighbors would sometimes ask, "Has your son come to visit lately?" I would smile and say, "Oh yes, he's been by." Sometimes gentle lies are easier to carry than heavy truths. Winter arrived earlier than usual that year. The nights were long and bitterly cold. The house made quiet creaking sounds as the wind pressed against the windows. One evening, I sat near the radiator and looked at Thomas's photograph on the wall. His eyes seemed to question me. "Why do you keep waiting?" they seemed to ask. "Because I promised him I would," I whispered back. And then, on a gray and rainy Thursday evening, the phone finally rang again. The familiar melody filled the room. My hands trembled so much I nearly dropped it. I pressed the green button. "Michael?" I said softly. There was silence. Then a man's voice spoke, calm but unfamiliar. "Ma'am, are you Mrs. Eleanor Hayes?" I felt something cold move through my chest. "Yes," I answered. "Who is this? Is my son there?" The voice replied gently, "I'm calling from Riverside Medical Center in Brookfield. We found your number in a wallet belonging to a man named Michael Hayes." Outside, the rain grew heavier. And suddenly, I couldn't breathe. The man on the other end of the line paused, as if searching for careful words. "I'm very sorry, Mrs. Hayes," he continued quietly. "There was an accident about 2 months ago. Your son did not survive. We attempted to reach you earlier, but we were unable to connect." 2 months. The words echoed in my mind like footsteps in an empty hallway. I did not scream. I did not cry. My fingers tightened around the small phone as though it could anchor me to something solid. The man kept speaking, about documents, personal belongings, formalities, but his voice sounded far away, like it was drifting across water. 2 months. For 8 long weeks, I had been waiting for calls that would never come. I had told myself he was busy. I had told myself he was building a life. All that time, my son had already gone somewhere I could not follow. That night, I sat in the dark living room without turning on a single light. The phone rested in my lap. Its screen was black, lifeless. Yet in my mind, I could see Michael clearly, smiling, alive, brushing his hair back the way he always did. In the morning, I opened my journal with trembling hands and wrote. Now I understand the silence. My son was not forgetting me. He was simply beyond my reach. A week later, a small parcel arrived from the hospital in Brookfield. Inside were his wallet, his wristwatch, and a photograph. The picture had been taken years ago in our garden. Michael stood between Thomas and me, all 3 of us squinting under the bright summer sun. We looked like a complete world in that single frame. I placed the photograph beside Thomas's portrait above the fireplace. Then I set the little blue button phone next to it. It was still charged. Still ready. Still waiting. Life did not stop, even though a part of mine felt frozen. Each morning, I continue to brew tea for two. I place a second cup across the table out of habit. I sit by the window, watching the street wake up. Sometimes I look at the empty chair and say softly, "Good morning, Michael. I hope it's peaceful where you are." The house remains quiet, but it is not entirely empty. When the wind slips through the curtains, it sometimes carries a faint whisper. On certain evenings, when the light falls just right, I almost expect to hear footsteps in the hallway. I no longer keep the phone close because I expect it to ring. I keep it because it reminds me of something deeper. Love does not disappear when a voice goes silent. It changes form. It moves from sound into memory, from touch into feeling. Every night before I go to bed, I still plug the phone into its charger. Not out of hope for a call, but out of respect for what it once represented, a bridge between two hearts. And sometimes, as sleep begins to take me, I imagine hearing that cheerful ringtone once more. This time, when I press the green button, there will be no distance. No silence. Only his voice, clear and close, saying, "Hi, Mom."